that the I'm good now.
Good.
Good. And but I had to be trucked. Thank you. I had to be trucked to the new McLaren by our emergency people, and they were great. They over the top good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, super, just super. I wrote the chief a letter telling him they were the best.
So do we call you Hopple?
I was in level 50 pain.
Really?
It was excruciating. I couldn't move my legs, and they managed to get me up and I was downstairs, so they had to go truck me up a hill. It took 3 of them to get me on a gurney. By the time I got to the hospital, they had me on some really good stuff. So
Okay, so you weren't feeling the pain
I was.
like you had been?
The hospital put me on the kind of drugs where I was seeing angels.
Oh, jeez.
Nice.
Well, if you need more of that, I know 3 or 4 guys in Jackson who can help you out.
It was interesting. They could, because I've got low blood pressure. They didn't want to deal with me in the emergency room, so they had to wait for an operating room to open up. And my hip it took 30 seconds to push it back into place. And the only person available to do it was a neurosurgeon. So you know, he said, "Where's the hip? In his head?" Anyway, quite the experience.
Jeez.
Our guys were. I can't say enough about the Meridian Township guys.
Was it the fire department?
Pardon?
Fire department service?
The emergency guys.
EMT?
The ambulance service guys. Yeah.
All right, the time is now 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the meeting for June 13, 2022 of the Meridian Township Planning Commission. We'll start first with a roll call. Commissioner McConnell.
Here.
Commissioner Primo.
Here.
Commissioner Cordill.
Here.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Here.
Commissioner Richards.
Here.
Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Tresize.
Here.
And Chair Bloomer is here. We have a quorum. I noticed that we have at least a couple of people in the audience for public remarks. I'd like to invite you, if you wish to address the board, to make your public remarks. If you choose to do so at this time, please identify yourself by name and your home address. If you wish to restrict yourself to a particular issue that's before the board, then we will ask for your public comments at that appropriate time. Is there anyone there who would like to make a general address to the board? None? All right, thank you. All right, so the next item on the list is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for approval? Moved by Commissioner Tresize, a second. Seconded by Commissioner Cordill. All in favor? Aye. No opposition. The agenda is approved. Next item, item number 5, approval of the minutes of the May 23 regular meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner McConnell. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Snyder.
I have one very small correction to offer.
Yes.
On page 5, which is page 7 of the packet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph. Development is 8 minutes from Meridian Mall by Cata Bus and 24 minutes to MSU campus. Further stated, Cata operates a shopping bus that serves shopping center. It circulates to, or serves either one of those. That's the most trifling amendment I plan to make all year, I promise you.
All right. Are there any other corrections or amendments to the May 23 minutes? All right, then. All those in favor of approval of the May 23 minutes with the correction suggested by Commissioner McConnell, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? There is none. The minutes are approved. Now we have communications, item number 6. We have email from Mr. and Mrs. Kearthy regarding item PUD 22-014, which is an issue that we will be discussing this evening. And staff has provided us with 2 other emails. The record should reflect that we've been given communication from Radhika Prasad, also regarding PUD 22-014, and from Karen Early, or I guess it's Early, on behalf of the Netloff family, also concerning the same item. No, yes, same item. She just didn't identify it by code number. All right, so now we are into item number 7, public hearings. Item 7A is the previously mentioned plan unit development, item 22-014, located at 3560 Hewlett Road. Is there a staff presentation?
Very small. Thank you. This is the public hearing for the plan unit development that you just referenced. We'll have a more full report coming in the future, but this public hearing, we wanted to get any comments or answer any questions you have about this up front. The applicant is here. He can answer questions as well. And that's everything I have to say. We're not making a recommendation at this time.
No recommendation. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board concerning this issue?
Hi, my name is Jim Jagera. I'm at 16900 Pine Hollow Drive in East Lansing. I am the applicant for the PUD. I was looking to develop 5, or actually 6 lots, of which one there's a current farm that's there. I'm going to keep that, and then I'm going to take the barns that are there down, and which is there's 5 barns, and there's 1 garage and another outbuilding of some sort. We're replacing with 5 single-family homes, initially it is zoned. I'm not asking for any zoning changes. The zoning is still the same. It's just I'm looking to do a PUD and develop it and for 5 single-family or 5 additional single-family homes. So, any questions you may have?
Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner
I
Tresias.
had a question there. There's a requirement to have a retention pond. Now, I see you've got a wetlands there, and Paxton Pond. Are you creating another area for retention or feeding into the pond that's there?
No, there's a retention area that's Meadows subdivision has it, and the Ingham County Drain Commission is an approved outlet. We just have to have an easement to get to use it. It's right next to the property, so it'd be a very convenient use. So there should be sufficient capacity for that there.
That would go through the drain commissioner as far
Right,
as
the drain commissioner. Yes,
as far as capacity to handle your runoff with 5
yes,
homes.
right. And we did check with the engineer, and there's sufficient capacity for sewer and water for that site also.
Okay.
And the Ingham County Road Commission will allow us to have 1 driveway there.
Do you have plans to hook into one of the stubs off Coriolis or the neighboring subdivision for a throughway or not?
Yeah, it just depends on what the township allows us to do. But yes, our plan is to have public water and sewer there.
Okay.
Do I understand that this was developed as a cul-de-sac because of traffic considerations?
Yes, that's what and also what the Ingham County Road Commission recommended.
Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I'm curious, especially in light of the letter from the Netloff family. It always impressed me that the farm structures on that, all the structures on that side are in really great condition, and it looks very much like an active farm, even though there's not a lot of acreage associated with it. And I'm curious about the removal of the existing structures. Are there opportunities for either relocation or reuse of the materials from those structures? They seem to be in great condition.
Yeah, so we'll probably contact people who use barn wood and things like that and be able to repurpose the wood that's there that's salvageable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cordell.
Following up by Commissioner McConnell, in general, I think this is a good plan. I'm pleased that you're preserving the existing farmhouse, and they're generous-sized lots in this PUD. So, although it will add 5 more homes to the area, it's not a dense development because it still kind of preserves that openness to the area. Do you know what kind of barns? What purposes those barns had? Do you know what? I guess that would be something interesting to follow up, to just know their purposes on the farm. It may be helpful to know that in order to see them have another life elsewhere.
I don't know. I can check with the nest lofts and get back with you like.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I have a question, either for the staff or the applicant. I know the pedestrian bicycle pathway does not cross that property, but just ends abruptly on the northwest corner of the property, and then continues around down Jolly. So my question is, will there be is there room in this development to put that pedestrian bicycle pathway?
Yes. Yeah, the pedestrian path will be installed. 7-foot path, I think, is what we require there, and then a 5-foot sidewalk going all the way around the cul-de-sac that'll connect to that path on both sides of the cul-de-sac.
Okay. And I guess I apologize for my hearing, but I thought I heard some of the question that was previously asked about connecting to the streets within the subdivision? Or did? Okay. And what was the answer? I guess I didn't hear that clearly.
There would be no connection with the streets and
Correct, okay.
subdivision.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, there isn't any way to get there on this.
No, there is no way.
Right. Okay. I guess that's all I have at this point.
Any other comments or questions for this citizen? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One quick question for staff, if I might. I was looking at the staff report, page 2, it's page 12 of the packet.
Sure.
The Planned Unit Development Standards, number 8.
Okay.
And I should know these by heart by now. But this one caught my eye. Except in unusual circumstances, stormwater runoff induced by the proposed development shall be detained for storage and infiltration on the site. And when I first read that, I thought, does that mean only detained and infiltrated? Obviously, there's some expectation that water would run off. So I guess I'm curious about our ordinance and that guidance. Is it meant to be some detention and some infiltration, or all detention and infiltration on what are we getting at there?
We're filling this one.
So,
Yeah.
I will punt.
So I think what you're seeing is probably a holdover of a previous era where there was different standards in place, especially at the countywide level. What we are hearing and seeing on most projects nowadays from the county's perspective is that is functionally the standard they utilize, is that it will be retained and allowed to infiltrate on site to the extent feasible, and the discharge points are controlled pretty extensively. So I think what that is getting at is that you just can't sheet flow it off the site or into a wetland or something like that. There has to be a controlled use or a control of the stormwater itself. I think that's just an old way of saying kind of what the new standard has become.
Okay, so that might be something that we could look at in the future to think about how much we want to detain and for how long and how it gets treated before it gets discharged?
It's an interesting question that I would love to have a further conversation with you about in the future. I have pondered that in light of the standards that the Drain Commissioner's Office has. The problem is they fundamentally supersede us on these issues. And so I have been thinking about, is there a way for us to be a little more active in that area? And I do have some ideas, but still having those conversations with the Drain Commissioner's Office about how can we be more proactive to help them out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cordell?
In layperson or layman's terms, does that mean that the runoff is, all of that stormwater is handled on site and there wouldn't be runoff onto other properties?
Correct.
Okay.
Although the unique situation here is there's functionally it's not a regional basin, but there is functionally a regional basin that has taken into account
Okay.
this last remaining property to be able to discharge to it. So,
Okay.
but if this was somewhere else on its own, they would have to accommodate for all of their stormwater on site before it leaves the site. So it has to be pre-treated, it has to be a controlled discharge.
So we had received an email communication from Prasad, and they could rest assured that there would not be drainage problems for neighboring properties if this development were to go forward.
Absolutely. It's more likely that their water will come onto this site than the water from this property to go onto their site.
Is that because improvement of the stormwater for this generation of
Functionally,
development?
it's a new set of standards
Okay.
that this project is going to be under compared to when that was approved.
Okay. Do you know approximately when? I know you're a newcomer to the community.
We will follow up on that.
Okay. I'm just wondering roughly, I wouldn't hold you to it, but that's good to know because someone bothered to address the commission on that concern. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I have one more question for Mr. Jagheri. We've entertained a lot of propositions recently for major developments. I'm just wondering, what do you envision as a timeline once your project is approved, assuming it's approved?
As soon as possible.
Yeah. Will you be building in anticipation, or do you have prospective buyers for these homes?
I do have prospective buyers for these homes, yes.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Is there any public comment concerning this item? Anyone wish to address the board regarding this item? All right. The record should reflect that we have the written communications from those three persons. There is nobody in the audience who wishes to address the board concerning this issue. All right. I'm going to take a I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to step in late. Is this regarding 3560?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Introduce yourself. Tell us your name and your home address, please.
My name is
Well, come up to the microphone.
My name is Lori Netzloff Adams, and I'm the property owner. I have a written statement from my brother and sister. They live out of state. My brother is a professor of English at University of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. My name is Mark Netzloff. I'm happy to join my sisters in offering our full support for Jim Gagir's PUD proposal for the property at 3560 Hewlett Road. We enthusiastically and unanimously agree that Jim's proposal is an ideal design for this property. The single entry on Hewlett Road is a well-conceived way of managing any traffic flow. His plan for 5 homes on an internal cul-de-sac blends in seamlessly with the surrounding neighborhood. Most importantly, his design preserves the house at 3560 Hewlett, a historic structure built in 1870. Our family deeply appreciates the care with which he has respected this home and its history. Speaking of history, Hewlett Road is in fact named after the woman who built this home in 1870 and who planted an apple orchard on the surrounding land. Our grandparents and parents farmed this land, including the adjoining field where Okemos High School is now located, from 1942 to 2000. But the barn and these surrounding buildings have remained unused for more than 2 decades, just as the Hewletts and the Netzloffs remade this land. We deeply appreciate of the stewardship of Jim Gagir in laying the groundwork for the next generations who will make this corner of the township their home. And more. For my sister, she lives in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I am Karen Netzloff Earl. I'm submitting this letter on behalf of the Netzloff family. As you know, 3560 Hewlett Road has been in the Netzloff family for over 80 years. My father farmed the 75 acres and many acres of the surrounding land as one of the last active farms in the township, before inevitably development and progress and my parents' age and retirement made farming in Okemos a thing of the past. Last year, our mother moved from Hewlett Road into a retirement home and passed away unexpected soon thereafter. I grew up in a time where I rode my bicycle to and from school in downtown Okemos. Those fond days are great memories for me. Unfortunately, we live in a different time and era. Our family listed the farm for sale for over 1 year, and we are grateful that a local builder-developer, Jim Gagir, has elected to purchase the Netzloff farm and build 5 homes with 1 entrance onto Hewlett Road, and to retain the historical home that is part of the farm. There could be other projects that people could propose for our land, but our family is supportive of this project, and we believe that our mother and father would likewise support it. In my perfect world, the land would still be farmed by my father. However, we believe Jim Gagir's PUD proposal is a reasonable project for this time and age. We ask that you support his PUD proposal.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions for this lady?
Oh, sure.
I know what's in the garage.
What was it? What kind of wood were the barns? Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments concerning this item? Should we take a straw vote on it? All right. Chair will propose a straw vote on acceptance of the PUD proposal. All in, we do roll call, straw. Let's start with Commissioner Tresize.
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I'm particularly enthused about the walkability portion of this proposal. We've struggled with the definition of that term in the past, but building homes across the street from a school that students can walk to, I can't think of a better illustration of walkability than that. And the continuation of the pathway is fulfilling the township's goals, and this plan fits with the master plan. I support it.
Very good. Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes. Now that family's present, if you would like to share some of the history of the property and like what some of the outbuildings were about at a later time. I mean, you could do it tonight or just maybe submit a description or something. That'd be appreciative.
Allison, did I call you?
Thank you.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards, did I call you?
Yeah.
Okay. And the chair votes yes. All right. Thank you very much.
And that was a straw vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we will do a full analysis and bring it back for the next meeting.
So we now are on item 7B, which is a text amendment to the municipal signage ordinance.
Thank you. Briefly, we have fast-forwarded a piece of the sign ordinance update that staff and the subcommittee have been working on to bring forward this specific piece to address one of the items you previously discussed, the municipal signage. Just the timing has not worked out, so we brought this small piece forward now. The subcommittee previously reviewed this and had no major concerns with it. Did discuss it at some length, but functionally what this does is it exempts municipal signage from the provisions of the sign ordinance because, as we talked about last time, there are a lot of different things municipal signs are trying to do in comparison to a traditional advertising or business message sign. So staff would recommend that we approve this evening, and in one of the few times I'm going to do this, we would ask the Planning Commission to waive your rules this evening to move this forward so we can get this in place prior to the sign project, which has gotten faster than I expected to this point. we would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
If we approve this, does it still have to go to the
Does still have to go to the board.
board? Okay.
Yep.
Just one comment. It occurs to me that of equal importance to us approving this is the fact that it allows Amber to put up temporary road signs to help people around the construction zones.
It does. We have had to get creative on how that has been approved. Those signs are legal under a current ordinance, under staff's interpretation of it. This does help substantially.
All right. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Cordell?
I appreciate the need for this. What standards would be in place, I mean, for what that municipal signage will look like, or township-sponsored?
So fundamentally, almost all of these types of signs are going to have to go to the board for approval. The board has spent a somewhat extensive amount of time reviewing the sign package that's currently up for consideration. The sign that the Planning Commission, the two signs the Planning Commission are reviewing later this evening have already been extensively reviewed by the board and staff. Suffice to say, nothing's going to get approved unless it goes through multiple layers of staff review and probably a layer of township board review.
I guess I'm curious of what would we expect to see in township-sponsored signage? I mean, I can see, I can understand the temporary signage to escort people through the construction, because honestly, I think I could use a little more of that.
So technically, one of the examples.
What are they judging these? What's the township board judging the signs against, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Our brand standard. So this is our brand standard. Those are the colors. That's the logo.
Okay.
That is the kind of thing that any signage we do needs to, be in harmony with.
So there's the desire to use the branding, but what about like size and placement and number of signs and all that kind of geeky signage sort of thing?
That will be entirely up to functionally staff and the township board should they get involved with it. I can tell you that a lot of we've had this conversation internally. We think, the land preservation signs that currently exist probably were not installed properly. They probably don't meet the ordinance, because these types of signage in general just is not something that municipal land does. And so we are just trying to allow for the ease of installation as opposed to going to the ZBA or going to the Planning Commission for an SUP on every single one. But it will still be reviewed by staff and the township board.
I have more questions, but I don't mean to dominate the conversation of other. So can you just kind of outline, for instance, the municipal complex, I imagine there are plans for signage in this area. And just if you could kind of describe where these signs would be, what kind of application. I mean, you mentioned like the land preservation signs and so forth.
Yeah, so largely a sign like this wouldn't necessarily have an application because, again, it's the municipality asking the municipality for permission. So typically we probably won't apply for a sign permit. What we'll apply for is like an electrical permit if we need one like that, because that's still something we need to go through. I can tell you that if you've been following the discussion at the township board level, that there is an entire sign package out there of meeting our brand standards and what we are looking at moving towards. I'm happy to provide that to the Planning Commission. Suffice to say that has been extensively vetted by staff. Assistant Manager Opsimer and Special Projects Director Massey have spent a lot of time on this, going through in really excruciating detail in many ways to make sure that it meets all of what we're going for. And it's not an overwhelming sign. It's still in keeping with the scale and character of where it's being installed. The Township Board has also reviewed that, I believe, at least 3 times that I'm aware of, and I know they talked about it extensively previously. So these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. It does go through a lot of review before anything like this gets installed, because they're not cheap, to be perfectly blunt. It's an expense that's going to have to get authorized by the board eventually, and so we're not going to take something to the board that's going to be inappropriate for the area it's being installed. But like the directional signage for this property would not be permitted under the current ordinance. So we wouldn't be able to differentiate between the municipal building and the the police building. That would not be permitted under the current ordinance. And there's really no scenario under which you can build an ordinance to address municipal signage, because our needs are different than a commercial tenant or a commercial building owner.
I guess I'm still, I appreciate what you're saying. I'd be interested in seeing what the sign package looks like.
Happy to provide that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richards?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but it's my understanding and belief that all of the township property is zoned residential. So we know how restrictive the residential sign allowances are. So that's the challenge that you have, is that virtually pretty much any sign is really not technically allowed in residential other than for small business, a couple square feet. So that's the challenge. And having to go through the ZBA or some other a way around it is the challenge, which I support this text amendment.
Okay. We don't want to cut you off. Do you have more questions?
Besides the township, you mentioned like identification of wetlands, and what other kind of signs might we see popping up?
So theoretically, if we wanted to do something like that, yes, that would qualify. Typically on wetlands, like if there's a requirement that something is set aside, that is built into the SUP approval for the development. Copper Creek is the example that comes to mind right now because we're dealing with that one. There is a spec that they have to install at certain locations that was approved as part of the project to identify these are protected wetlands that are being set aside as part of the project. Things like that fall into a bit of a gray area because they're approved over here under the SUP or under the subdivision, but they're really not permitted under the sign ordinance. So because they've gotten an approval, we allow them to be installed. But park signage is the example that comes to mind because, as Commissioner Richards pointed out, almost everything we own is zoned residential, which functionally just allows a home occupation sign.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this issue?
I would move that we suspend our bylaws and so that we can vote on this evening.
Immediately. Is there a second to that motion?
Support.
Commissioner Richards seconded. I think I have to take a roll call on this because it was pointed out to me by an attorney on our staff that we need 2/3 of a vote to waive it.
Some discussion on that motion first.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm struggling just a little bit to understand the issue of urgency. It seems to me when the township considers any application from the township, it's our duty, I think, to hold ourselves to the highest possible standard. I think moving with more haste than we would were a private applicant asking for urgent action because they had a plan that was coming together faster than they had anticipated. I think at times the Planning Commission probably would have balked at that as an argument for urgency. So as much as I would love to see the township signage meet the brand standards as quickly as possible, I'm not sure that, I don't support the suspension of the rules in order to move forward more quickly than we might in the case of a private applicant.
Mr. Shrewsbury.
Offering a slightly different perspective, and I think I have the benefit of having served on the sign committee, so I have heard some of these conversations, but I do believe that this was also part of a discussion of the work of the sign committee that's been before the whole board previously. So to me, this doesn't feel as rushed as it would have if this was the first time we were hearing of it. So I'm very comfortable taking this piece of that part that is the intent of the sign committee to put forward as a change tonight to support the township in its work. I do appreciate your caution and your want to sort of follow the books, and in general, I think that's a good caution for us, but in this case, I'm more comfortable changing that policy because of the previous discussion that we've had on the topic.
I would also suggest that in the case of private urgency, that again, if we're doing our due diligence, we're going to handle those on the merit of the concern as well. So I think to assume that we would not grant that in any case is an assumption that you can't make for me.
Any other comments on, yes?
I would feel more confident in moving forward on this and seeing what kind of signs and where they would be located. At least the sign package. I realize that there may be signs that they don't anticipate now, but to see what's already in the works.
I believe we're going to be looking at some of the signs that they're proposing later on in the meeting.
Right, the changing message.
Yeah, but those are the types of signs we're talking about at this point to put up in limited areas. So I think those are primarily the ones that are going to be in front of the township at this point.
Any other questions or comments on this issue before we call the vote? All right, on the issue of the waiver of the bylaws for immediate vote, Commissioner McConnell.
No.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordill.
No.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Tresize.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer, the chair votes yes. 2/3 are voting yes, therefore the time period is waived. Now, is there a motion on the approval of the question? Text amendment for municipal signage.
So moved. I would move the proposed amendment for, text amendment for municipal signage 2022-11 be approved.
Moved by Commissioner Richards. Is
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Tresize. All right, so we'll take a roll call. Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordill.
No.
Commissioner McConnell.
No.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Tresize.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. All right. We now move on to item 7C, which is text amendment to the container regulations.
This has been before you a couple times before. Last time, we got the go-ahead to go ahead and schedule a public hearing. We've received no comment. The ordinances are as they appeared last time you saw them, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about this. As a personal note, one did go up in my subdivision, so now I know what you're going through.
Are there any questions or comments on this issue? No? All right, then. Is there a motion to approve the text amendment? Okay, the chair will make the motion to approve the text amendment. Is there a second? Second by, I'm sorry, seconded by Commissioner Primo. Yes.
Is this supposed to be a public hearing on this matter?
This is a public hearing.
Okay.
we have
So-
to have public
So you
comment.
need,
Oh,
if
Are
you wanted to
we-
proceed, you'd
I was going to say, is this another one that someone is suggesting that we waive bylaws, or are we just, I think at this point, we'd
This
just
is
be
the third
doing.
hearing.
The resolution is in there if you choose to do so, but at your leisure.
Yeah.
This is what the bylaw says is we cannot approve it on the date of the
Okay.
public hearing unless we waive the rule.
That's right.
We
I
did
thought
not.
so too. I'm
That was
sorry.
our discussion about new business.
Yeah, tonight is the public hearing. This is the third time you've seen it. I showed it to you once, you bashed it nicely. Sorry. You had comments about it. I brought it back to you, and when you seemed okay with it, then I told you I'd schedule a public hearing, and that is tonight.
I apologize for the confusion. All right, then let's take a straw vote on the approval of the proposition. Commissioner Tresize?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury?
Yes.
Commissioner Cordillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Primo?
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell?
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes.
In the future, when you do the minutes, I would not, it seems odd to me to say that a vote carries when it's a straw vote. You might want to say that the vote gained straw vote support.
Okay.
You know, you see the difference?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like we passed it if you say it carries.
Okay, I'll bring that up. Thank you.
Zach, when you're listening to the minutes, do that.
It appears from the agenda that there is no unfinished business. So we are on item 9, other business. Item 9A is a special use permit for the changing message signs.
So yes, this is the changing message signs for the Municipal building and for Marketplace on the Green. So there's 2 of them. Marketplace on the Green is the one exception to the properties being zoned residential. I forgot about that when Commissioner Richards said that. So I wanted to be clear that there is a provision for signage there at least. The Planning Commission held the public hearing at the last meeting, had no major concerns, asked us to rework a couple pieces of the language. So we've reworked under the resolution conditions 2 and 5. I'll start with 5. Commissioner McConnell had a concern with conditioning it specifically upon the ordinance changing. So what we've done is we've reversed that and made it so that the special use permit would no longer be valid unless that happens. So taking the burden off the requirement to it happening. And then in the commission clearly had a lot of questions, concerns about how often it changes. Again, in case of emergency, all bets are off. We're going to do what we have to do. And that doesn't really need to be said. But in trying to mesh what the Planning Commission talked about and what staff intends to do here, what we've come up with is there shall be no more than 5 messages per day. So, and they shall not transition more than once a minute or once every, they have to be up there for at least a minute. So that to address Commissioner Primo's concern about it being distracting to a driver, for both of those signs, you should be past the sign by the time it changes. But to address some of the comments Commissioner Snyder had about, well, what if we have multiple things going on? This is also Communications Department's concerns of, okay, there's a lot of things we could put on Marketplace of the Green right now if we had that sign. And so this is trying to find the happy medium in everyone's concerns with this language under subsection 2. So I just want to point out the signs. This is actually, if you wanted to take a peek, this is the May 17th packet that has the entire, May 17th Township Board packet. This has the entire sign package that's currently being reviewed. Thank you, System Manager Opsmer, for responding to the text quickly, so I didn't have to search for this. This is the municipal sign that you see, the building, the sign for the municipal building. You'll see the electronic message board in the center here, 20 square feet. The reason this sign is slightly bigger than the sign I'm going to show you for Marketplace on the Green is because we are also putting the Historical Village sign on this sign. So the municipal complex building is slightly bigger than the Marketplace on the Green sign, which I believe is this one. There it is. This is the municipal building zoomed in, and then you can see the alternative here just doesn't have the that extra part. So we take out this middle piece for the Marketplace on the Green site. Both of them have essentially the same message boards, 20 square feet. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but staff would recommend approval of this this evening, and this is the Planning Commission is the final decision-making body on this item. But this did go through extensive vetting with the Township Board. The Township Board is on board with these signs at this point.
Questions, comments? Commissioner McConnell.
One typographical and one philosophical. Thanks for taking into account my comments about the phasing of the special use permit shall be void if the
Yes.
township. Yeah.
I caught it as I was reading it up here.
The broader one, I guess, is for these signs, this special use permit effectively enshrines these design standards for these particular signs.
Correct.
But those design elements are not specifically part of the resolution?
But it's the application, so you're approving the application.
Right.
This is the sign.
Okay.
That it was part of the application. So it's like a subdivision. You're approving that design.
Right, so if the township decided after approval that it wanted to build something twice as big, that would not conform?
It would not. And
Okay.
as I stated at the last meeting, my position is that these special use permits for these two sites will survive the change in ordinance, and so any change will still have to come back to the Planning Commission for review.
So I guess then the follow-on question is for other signage that's now been exempted, there wouldn't be a similar point at which the design standards would be reviewed except internally to meet brand standards?
And at the Township Board level, which is this packet that I have in front of you this evening.
I was thinking about other signs than the ones covered by this packet, other municipal signage that, or am I misunderstanding?
No, there wouldn't be a formal review, but I think if you take a minute to go through this, you will see this is outlined in detail for pretty much any possible sign that we would install. I mean, this is basically how any sign that the township is going to install in the near future is going to look, based off this package that the Township Board has given their, I don't want to say blessing, but their head nod to.
Right. So the land preservation signs, for instance, Hartrick Park and others are kind of under this same kind of set of design standards.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Shrewsbury.
One minor, the draft resolution for this that's in our packet has last meeting's date, May 23rd, or May 23rd. So just if we do vote on this tonight, it should be updated to tonight's date. Right?
Yes.
Help me out.
Page,
Resolution.
yeah. And then I think.
Adding this, yes.
Yes, and then
I gotcha.
Yep, and at the bottom, adopted on, instead of saying 23rd of May. I think, because you gave us a draft when we looked at this
In
at
the
our
last packet,
meeting.
yeah. There are two resolutions in your packet this evening,
Okay.
one from the last one. But yes, picking up on the fourth whereas, I got you.
Sorry, if I'm reading the wrong one, that's my.
No, we
bad.
did drop the June 13th meeting on the fourth whereas, so we'll
Okay.
pick that up in the final draft.
Great.
You know, a few people are going to read this stuff. Commissioner Richards, go ahead.
Yeah, I hate to even bring this up at this time, but I guess I'm going to anyway. And it's regarding the actual verbiage on the signs. Is the verbiage on the signs part of the approval then?
Part of your approval?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. We can't regulate what a sign says.
Okay. Let me just say, and I know this is part of the logo and everything, but I have to go back in history a little bit when Virginia White was clerk, and we put a new sign out in front of the building, and she looked at me and said, "You have to take that sign down." And I go, "Why is that?" She said because it doesn't say the Charter Township of Meridian, it says Meridian Township. And the official title for us is the Charter Township of Meridian. So whether that was taken into account or not, I don't know. But
I will ask the question. I think that it was, pick that up, put it on a sign, but I will ask the question.
Commissioner Snyder?
Quick question. Looking at the resolution number 2, the message on the sign shall change no more than twice a day, and I believe you stated 5 times?
You are definitely on the old resolution.
Okay, so that's what I'm very confused then, trying to
if
find
you
the current one.
Scroll back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, you will
Okay.
get to the updated resolution.
What page in the packet is that?
42.
42.
Okay,
That's where it
thank
was.
you.
Okay.
42, that's helpful.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tresize, seconded by Commissioner Shrewsbury. Let's call the roll on this one. Commissioner Richards?
yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury?
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell?
Yes.
Commissioner Primo?
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Tresize?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. The motion is approved. All right. Is there a staff discussion for item 9B, Planning Commission bylaws?
I will just preface this by saying this is good practice to review your bylaws on a regular basis. It's been 5 years, so almost to the day. So great practice to do that. We can certainly amend further if the Planning Commission would desire, because there is a bit of overlap from the ordinance. But really, all we're proposing at this point is functionally it's 4 changes, and only one of which I think the Planning Commission really cared about when they originally brought this item up. But I'll briefly just talk about them. The change in 3D really does not reference anything in the ordinance, so I would recommend that be struck. The change at 5.8 is not something that's really necessary. Staff's policy is that we run the agenda by the chair before we publish it. So that is our working policy. The change in section 7 is recreating the existing ordinance. We would definitely recommend removing that, so that in the event we update the ordinance, we don't forget to update the bylaws, and then we have 2 sets of standards out there. So really the only controversial one, if you will say, is 6.4, which is the bylaws restricting action the same night as the public hearing. Staff's position, and I will reiterate, this is entirely your rule. You can treat it however you want. Our point is always, if there is literally any question at all, if this doesn't exist, then we bring it back at the next meeting and answer that question. So but these are the Planning Commission's rules, so I will step aside now.
Anyone wish to discuss this issue tonight? Commissioner Tresize.
I personally like 6.4, the one that about delaying, because when we have our public meetings, sometimes, often with zoning or proposals, that's the first time the public, at least on TV or widespread, have seen notice of this change, and we may get public comment. We also often have questions that require further follow-up, and I think waiting 2 weeks after the public hearing, in 90% of the cases, whatever, makes a lot of sense to get full information and to allow further public impact. There is a provision to waiver under 9.2, and in appropriate situations that has been utilized, and I consider it a valid use of the board time to waive that in appropriate situations. But I do like the idea of waiting 2 weeks until the next meeting to make a final decision. But that's just my opinion.
I was just going to comment, even though I'm the chair, I'm the second newest member of this board. And I have seen the benefit of having some time to digest comment and discussion and revisit it 2 weeks later. When there have been cases where the staff has recommended an emergency basis, or when there's literally no discussion to be had on an item, it is a waivable rule. It's not unwaivable. So I don't see any reason to change it at this time, would be my position.
I echo that. I think it should be a given that it's going to come up in 2 weeks, but there should be extenuating circumstances that would allow it to be handled that night. And we have acted on that. It's not like we're unreasonable about that as a body.
Commissioner Primo, you had a comment?
No, I was just agreeing.
Commissioner Schuster?
I also agree that it's good to have that little check on us and to have the standard expectation to be at the following meeting. What I would ask, though, is and I don't know that this needs to be formalized except sort of by tacit agreement of the board, is that we try to use similar standards when determining whether or not we're going to waive, so that we don't find ourselves waiving for some and not for others, but that there be some consistency in how we process that sort of. And I think you listed, somebody did if there is no opposition, or if it is something where there are extenuating circumstances by which waiting would create a problem, and some combination of those. And I don't know that we have to have that formalized, but I would like us to try to abide by that and not kind of flip-flop on how we choose to use that flexibility.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. Further to these points, it's really sparking thoughts in my head. I can imagine circumstances where the Planning Commission sees an application for the first body within the township, other than staff, and is the final decider. Being somewhat different from complex applications where there may be multiple permits. The application may end up going to the township board, where there's already been many opportunities for the public to see and hear about applications, where as being very different in nature. So I'd be interested in staff's view of whether it makes sense to think about treating applications in context of other processes that they need to pass through.
Commissioner Craig?
I was just going to say my experience of being on the Planning Commission is there's been discussion of, there's been a request to waive that 2-week waiting period, so to speak. And I think more often than not, I can't say that I don't remember something going into the record like there was no opposition, or further details will be forthcoming. But more often than not, I think it's a good policy to have, as others have mentioned.
Especially when you take into consideration the name of this body. It's the Planning Commission. And if you're going to plan something correctly, you should take some time to think about it.
You don't want to be called the Rush to Judgment Commission?
That's right.
It doesn't have the same ring, does it?
I do appreciate Commissioner Shrewsbury's comment that it may be helpful to have, I don't know if that would be a list or a clearer understanding of the kinds of things that would trigger an exception. I certainly heard the point about just because they're saying it's urgent, how is that different than a builder saying it's urgent? But a builder may come and say, if I can't get a permit today, I can't get the material, and therefore I won't be able to build for 2 years or something like that. That would be a circumstances that would cause me to say, well, yeah, we probably ought to make an exception. But perhaps if we had some guidelines for that, that would be helpful. So I support that statement or that idea.
Anyone else wish to express an opinion on this?
Could I
Go
make
ahead.
an observation?
Yes.
As I'm listening to your conversation, it occurs to me that there's a distinction between a site plan, because you make a couple of you made the point, people watch this on TV, like the PUD tonight, we got emails, I very well could get 2 more emails tomorrow, you know what I mean? That makes sense. The text amendments that we've been bringing to you have been pretty straightforward. I haven't had a comment on a text amendment yet. Perhaps that is a distinction that you are looking for. As an example, and I'm not, the refuse container tonight, that's the 3rd time you've heard it. I haven't ever had a comment on it. That seemed like that could go forward. That didn't have any opposition, public or from the commission. And I don't anticipate getting it either. You see, that I just suggest that, as you will.
We delayed that so that you could have a personal experience with the issue.
Thank you very much, but I live in Bath Township.
All right. Well, that was listed as discussion. I believe we've had discussion on that, unless anybody else has any other comments.
I think the other proposals that they had in there as far as eliminating some provisions make some sense. Especially the Section 7, which is the appellate procedure. I think that's established by ordinance, so we don't need to include it in our bylaws. A reference, subsection 3D, has duties imposed upon us that we don't do and isn't part of our enabling ordinance or legislation. Some of the listing as far, I think the limitation on 3 public hearings, we missed several times, and so, and we've never voted to waive that, which we can do, but it seems like a limitation that really isn't necessary, and we can defer public hearings as necessary if it gets too late. So I think those changes are reasonable, and I would support those.
I don't think anything is required tonight on this.
No.
No, okay. All right then.
We're just trying to give guidance to
Staff.
staff.
Any other comments? All right then. So we are now on item 10, which is 10A is Township Board Update.
I have to admit, I'm cheating on this one because this was one of the most extensive board meetings I've ever been a part of in my career. And so I don't remember all the things that were on here. So the Township Board has only had 1 meeting since the Planning Commission last met, and they were had a very extensive agenda, as I believe we mentioned before the meeting. They had the world champion Hazlitt Robotics team in for a presentation, along with police and fire candidates, special tribute for the Flags Over Meridian project that Tom Haas started, presentation on the new mascot from John Hood with Okemos Public Schools, and a presentation from Chief Hamill about severe weather awareness, which is a timely one, along with the audit. So from the Planning Commission's perspective, there were a couple of specific items on there. One, the Bickford House project was approved for a building larger than 25,000 square feet. They are working on final engineering at this point, and we expect to see a submittal from them soon. They did also They adopted the meeting attendance accommodation policy, so under the state law that was changed to allow for remote attendance for people with qualified disabilities. There's now a policy in place for that. I'm happy to speak to that further if anyone has any questions. They did set the public hearing for July 12th on the MUPUD for Hazlet Village Square. We did this a little out of order because of the way the calendar fell, so we're actually going to take that to them next week for discussion with the public hearing already set. And they did approve the establishment of a commercial rehabilitation district, which helps the financing out on the project, but doesn't take any money out of the township's pocket. That now goes to the county for review. It's one of the few acts that we take that goes to the county for review. And lastly, they did, among a bunch of other things, one of the last things the Planning Commission may wish to understand is they did begin discussion of Ordinance 2022-10, which is the decks in the PUD, and they had a similar reaction on the Planning Commission of, yep, let's fix that. So we'll take that back for introduction at the next meeting and then adoption at the end of the month. We do have, as predicted, 2 applications that are going to fall right into that ordinance right away. So it's going to be a good one to fix. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's the short version of a long agenda.
I'm sorry, was there any questions? No. All right, so we are now on item 10B, which is liaison reports. Are there any?
I can report that I made the arrangements to be sworn in to the ZBA on Wednesday, and will attend the first meeting Thursday evening. Wednesday evening, thank you.
Well, you may attend the Thursday evening, but you're
I'll make some serious decisions by myself. Yes, Wednesday evening, thank you.
Any other liaison reports? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I attended the EDC meeting last week, or the week before, and they did not have a quorum, so nothing was formally acted upon. There's a couple of things floating around that will come back in the next meeting. And we had a nice presentation from Amber about the Juneteenth Day celebration in the township, which is going to be very nice. And that information, I believe, is on the website. I also was sworn in to the Brownfield Development. Administration will be meeting, I think, on Thursday this week. So, looking forward to that.
Not a liaison report, but you triggered my memory about something. Are you and I the only attorneys on the staff? Or? I think so. An announcement came out that Juneteenth was made a court holiday.
Yes.
So courts will be officially closing from now on Juneteenth if it comes out during a working day. So.
Yeah, the Environmental Commission met on June 1st and continues its work to update the Climate Sustainability Action Plan adopted by the board in 2017. At the last meeting, the Commission considered a proposal to add a new section to the Climate Sustainability Plan that basically expands what had been a portion of the recycling solid waste management plan that referenced organic waste management, but didn't have any specifics to expand that and to include also local food production. Those talks are in their early phases, but it's possible that I think it's likely that there could be some discussion between the Climate Sustainability Plan and efforts to promote local food production and potentially the future land use map and how we foresee the future of our undeveloped properties in the township with regards to updating the master plan.
I attended the DDA meeting. A significant portion of the meeting was simply discussing their budget and how they paid all their bills and what their current balance is. But there was one issue that came up that is of interest to this group, I think, and that is that because of the bridge construction project, they had to remove several major light posts. That proved to be surprisingly expensive. It was $4,000. They found a local contractor who was willing to do the job. At first, they couldn't even find somebody who was willing to do it. They finally found a contractor willing to do it, and it was $4,000 simply to dig up the pole. And what they're really concerned about is that it may end up being a whole string of light posts all the way down the way that have to do that. We don't yet have an idea of what it's going to cost to reinstall them after the project is completed. So it's just simply to dig the thing up, cap off the electrical outlet, and get that pole out of the way of the project was $4,000 for one pole. So to give you an idea of the magnitude of the expenses involved in this project, that'll give you an idea. And that was a major issue of discussion at that meeting. Any other liaison reports? No. All right, so we are...
That sounds outrageous, but it isn't, because of the liability issues and a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's apparently why several contractors just didn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
There was also a discussion as to who actually owns them, which is why Consumers Energy themselves didn't do it. Their attitude was, we supply the electricity and that's the end of our responsibility. It's not ours. So,
Things never change.
yeah.
Not the structure that is.
Yeah, the concrete pole and all the wiring, that's all they do is supply the juice that goes through it. So, interesting problem.
Who had them built?
Comes out of their budget. All right, so we are now on item 11, project updates. Does staff want us to know anything about any of these, or?
Oh, yeah, sure, sorry. The first one, the new application, that SUP, that is a application for a group daycare, and there is a public hearing set for July 11th-ish, the first meeting in July for that. 2 site plans received. The Commons Church parking lot expansion has a public meeting scheduled for 4 o'clock tonight in this, or 4 o'clock tomorrow in this room. Presbyterian Church solar panels is a minor site plan amendment for 2 solar panels out there, and that's currently under review. And site plan approved for some parking lights at the Bharatiya Temple, and that approval letter's been sent.
Very good. All right, we're on item 12, public remarks. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the board? Should reflect that there is no public remarks request. So therefore, we are on item 13, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Cordell. Second? Second by Commissioner Shrewsbury. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. 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 This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. It's 4.